it was a window into how the music industry worked and about this sort of enduring struggle between sort of creativity and commercial needs.
T-Bone is on the other side. T-Bone is on the other side. T-Bone, Prime Cuts, podcast on the other side. T-Bone, Prime Cuts, the talk space where musicians matter.
What do you think is the real story of the band Boston?
The real story. That's a tough one because everybody has a different take on what the real story is. Is it about this genius engineer who created the band in his basement? Is it about all of the other band members who were, potentially mistreated or not given their full credit? Is it about the record label helping produce one of the, greatest albums of the late 70s? And I think for me, it's like it was a window into how the music industry worked and about this sort of enduring struggle between sort of creativity and commercial needs.
Tom's father thought he was wasting his time with music. And then after Tom graduated from MIT, he took a job at Polaroid in nearby Cambridge, Massachusetts. How did he keep the dream alive to be a musician?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Tom's story is, he was always a man divided, he loved making music and he liked the technical challenge of it, but he was also like this creator and this inventor. And so, he was using those two sides of his brain. In the beginning, it felt like engineering was the practical route, right? He went to MIT. He, worked on these challenges, including making a device that would help his father,
Mhm.
his father's company, move and situate these pre-manufactured homes that he worked on. But eventually, Tom started to go his own way, and as he's going through college, he picked up guitar. He met Barry Goudreau, who would become the guitarist of Boston. He played in a bunch of bands, and then it was kind of in the early 70s when he graduated and he was like, you know what, I'm really gonna give it a go and try to sell, send a demo out to record companies and try to make it, I believe in my music. And I mean, that was the 5 year struggle to actually sell the first album. And how he kept the dream alive, determination. I don't know. I don't know much else beyond that. I mean, it was a lot of rejection. And I actually have, a copy of like one of the last rejections he received, which was
Oh,
from CBS Records in 1975. A demo that included several of the songs that ended up on the first album. And I mean, it's essentially like a form rejection, like we don't need you at this time. A year later, they get the deal. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
by this point, the first record was released, and at the time, it was the top-selling, debut album in history. Now, CBS, the management, and even the band had to be surprised at this. They couldn't believe this happened. I imagine, could they?
No, nobody expected it. I mean, they'd kind of come out of nowhere. It was sort of this lull in the music industry. There was sort of a bit of a changing of the guard. They thought it was a good album, but I mean, I have quotes from Walter Yetnikoff, president of CBS Records, who he didn't even, he hadn't even heard the band's name when the first album came out. It wasn't until he starts to get the accounting and he starts to see, whoa, this band's really taken off, that he took note of them. But yeah, I mean that's the way it was, and I don't think that's unusual. You don't know you're signing up a superstar. Especially back then. I mean, now with social media, I don't know, you sign somebody who's got a few million followers. But yeah, back then it was like you have to sign up a lot of a lot of bands to guarantee a hit. And I think that's kind of the music industry's argument, which is they invest a lot in failures, and so therefore they need to be rewarded generously with the successes.
So after a while, and this was after they get their own private plane and everything. And matter of fact, they were on the plane when Tom scribbled out the one-page document that all five members would be democracy and that they would split the royalties equally. He just thought he was making people happy. Now he takes a lot of heat at times for being self-centered, but he really did try to please people, at least early on, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Tom was generous with his money
Yeah.
and with his deals, and perhaps too generous in some respects. He didn't know better a lot of times when he was signing these contracts, and it also the money wasn't what it was about. It was about his art, it was about his music, and that's where sort of, his ego shows up, where he wants all the credit all the time, and he was not very generous with that. And I think that's where you can get, it was hurtful to some of the other musicians in the band. He may have downplayed some of their contributions. And some of them may have, overplayed what their contributions were or how critical they were. I mean, the fact was he was the songwriter, and he had this idea in his head about how the music should be played. So he played most of the notes on most of the albums. Whether or not he had to, I don't know. That probably wasn't great for tying the band together and holding them together. But when you look at his recording method and just how incredibly frustrating it would be, I wouldn't have wanted been the guy called in the studio to play something 1,000 times and get it
Yeah.
right while he's like sitting there getting frustrated. Let the guy do it
Yeah.
himself. That's just the way he worked. And like he's a person and he's got some quirks. That's just the story. And I mean, I find it interesting, like, and it can be sad, but it's the way that he had to work to produce the music.